It's called The Unsolved Case of the Man Who Didn't Exist. Lock in.
On June 12th, 2009, a man checked into the Sligo City Hotel in Sligo, Ireland. Under the name Peter Bergman, he claimed to be from Austria and provided papers saying as much. The man was then found 4 days later, deceased on the rocks at Ross's Point Beach. The investigation that would go on to occur would leave the police and the nearby residents of Sligo confused and looking for answers for years to come. Because in that investigation, it would be proven that this Peter Bergman was not who he claimed to be. Or rather, he wasn't anyone.
I don't know if anybody in here believes in time travel or not, but every time I see an occurrence like this, like this right here with Mr. Peter Bergman, every time I see an occurrence like this, my first assumption is this dude was a time traveler, fucking around and died in our time period. And the reason why his DNA doesn't exist in the database is because he's not supposed to be here. You know, I don't know if that's a ridiculous assumption or what, but like my mind always goes to like more than what it actually is, which, you know, I mean, it does seem awfully strange that this gentleman's DNA was not in any database, so he basically didn't exist. That's very weird. But yeah, I always just assume it's a time traveler. I don't know.
The final 4 days of his life were caught on CCTV footage, showing him meticulously dumping his belongings, walking around the hotel, and exploring Sligo, almost as a ghost amongst humans. Was this the story of a terminally ill man who wanted to end his life on his own terms? Was this unidentified man the missing founder of Bitcoin? Or is there something even more nefarious beneath the surface? This is the depressing, unsolved mystery of the man who didn't exist, Peter Bergman. Truly, this is such a strange case. I really think you're going to enjoy it. And my entire perception and belief of what actually happened in this case changed. But I do hope you enjoy. Grab a bucket of popcorn, grab a Dr. Pepper, sit back and relax, and enjoy the show.
Don't do that. Grab a can of potted meat and an RC Cola, and then we're going to sit back and enjoy the show. Make sure you bring some crackers with you, too.
Every single year, an estimated 8 million people are reported missing around the globe. Now, some of these disappearances can be explained with logic and reasoning. Some people might be kidnapped, some people sadly might be trafficked, some people disappear on their own accord. But other cases, like the man in today's video, are unexplainable. They have no grounding in reality, and even today, with our modern technology, we still can't decide who this man was, where he came from, and how he ended up on the beach. But in order to make sense of any of it, we have to start back at the beginning and tell the story leading up to his death. What makes this case so unique is that his entire whereabouts were captured on footage on security camera the last 4 days that he was alive. Yet, even though there is footage of literally 80% of the things he does, that 20% that's not under...
Yeah, but if like he gave all of his like proper documentation stating that he was this man like Peter Bergman, and he gave like his identification, he gave his passport, he gave his, you know, credit card, he gave this, he gave that, couldn't they just trace all that shit back to his residence of like where it was that he claimed that he lived? Like his address, and then figure out from neighbors and stuff who this person actually was, or try to find like next of kin, or see if his DNA matched with anyone else within like the database or something, and be like, hey, who is this gentleman? Do you know him? I feel like there was more that could have been done to discover who Peter Bergman was.
The footage makes the mystery that much more unexplainable. This man, calling himself Peter Bergman, checked into the Sligo City Hotel on the afternoon of June 12, 2009. Earlier in that same day, he was spotted at the Ulster bus station. At the station, he was wearing a black shoulder bag and a small carry-on bag, and after boarding the bus for Sligo and arriving there, he then took a taxi to the hotel he checked into. Upon approaching the desk, he paid for his stay in cash, and he gave the clerk the name Peter Bergman. The address he provided was this. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, I don't want to butcher it. And he claimed this address was from Vienna, Austria. However, as you heard from the intro of this video, it would go on to be discovered that every single detail that I just told to you and that he told to the clerk was false. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. As seen in the CCTV footage, the man was not trying to be secretive on the surface. He was witnessed by many people inside the hotel and around other areas in the city, and he was reported by those people to be around 5 foot 10 inches tall, skinny, with trimmed gray hair, bluish eyes, and a tannish complexion. Most eyewitnesses claimed that he looked to be in his late 50s to early 60s, so an old dude. During his stay at this hotel, he conversed and kind of chatted with other people that were staying there, and those people would later come forward and claim that the man had a very thick German accent.
What if he was in like some kind of like witness protection? I wonder if he was in like witness protection and that's what was going on with him. I don't know. It's kind of weird to me.
By all accounts, to everyone who was looking on, this unidentified man seemed to be dressed like a well-groomed businessman. He wasn't a vagabond, he wasn't a drifter, he had a tailored suit, a nice haircut, and he wasn't off-putting. And at the time, nothing really seemed odd. He arrived to the hotel on the 12th of June, and the next day, on the 13th, he was captured walking into the Sligo post office at 10:49 a.m. Whilst inside the post office, he purchased 8 82-cent stamps as well as airmail stickers. The reason for these purchases is unknown. The next day, on Sunday, June 14th, the man walked outside of the hotel and he hailed a taxi. Once inside the taxi, he was discussing with the driver about beaches in the area, specifically beaches where he could go swimming at. He named off a few, but the driver said that he knew a place and that he would take him there and show this man where it was. The beach the driver had in mind is known as Ross's Point Beach. The taxi driver then drove the man to the beach, they looked at it, he hopped back in the taxi, and then the taxi driver drove the man back to the bus terminal. Throughout this entire duration and the entire stay at the hotel, every single day, several times a day, the man was captured on footage walking out of the hotel room and out of the building with a purple bag in his hand. The man would leave the hotel with this bag full of items and then come back and the bag wasn't in his hand. He had slipped it into his pocket. This would go on to occur multiple times every single day to the point where the clerks at the hotel would start to notice. And every day like clockwork, he would walk outside the hotel with that bag full of stuff and he would return with no bag visible.
That boy was making some drops. He was doing some shit he wasn't supposed to be doing. Something was definitely wrong, dude. I don't know. I don't know what to make of old dude. I'm sitting over trying to assess the situation, and it seems like he's either a time traveler, he's in witness protection, or he's affiliated with some scary gentleman. And yeah, he's doing some shady. And I'm just like I said, I'm just trying to assess the situation. I can't really figure out what's going on with him. I feel like I'm as confused and dumbfounded as law enforcement was whenever they was reviewing all this footage and was like, what the hell is he doing?
The next day on June 15th, the man walked into the hotel lobby and asked if he could check out later in the day, claiming he had some errands to run first. The clerk thought nothing of that because sometimes people would ask for later stays if their bus was delayed or their train was delayed, so again, no red flags. On this last day, right after he asked for a late checkout, the man walked to his room. And then again, just like every single other day, the man walked back out of his hotel room and back out of the hotel with a purple bag filled to the brim with items. It's thought that what this man was doing was getting rid of his personal items, his last vestiges of himself, and he was taking individual pieces of it in this bag every single day and going out to the parts of the city that aren't on footage and dumping them somewhere. After this final time where he walked out of the hotel with this really full purple bag, he returned, again with no bag, and went to his room to get his belongings. He eventually came back down to the lobby and checked out at the front desk, this time with a few different items. On his person, he was carrying a shoulder bag, the same one that he was seen wearing at the bus station. That purple plastic bag was also in his hands, and now a different, smaller suitcase was in his hands. This bag was not seen at the bus station or at the hotel ever. He then left the hotel and walked over into the direction of the bus station. He stopped along the way at a shopping center called the Quayside Store, and he was caught on camera kind of just standing there in the doorway of the shopping center. After several minutes of standing here, he then walked out of the shopping center and again walked towards the bus terminal.
Dude, this old man's got some weird shit going on. Okay, I'm not judging anybody. I'm not one of them people that, you know, that judge. But it is very, very hard to try to figure out what angle this old man's coming from. And he might not even be coming from an angle. He might have just died. But I'm just saying, man.
At 1:38 p.m., he got to the bus station and he ordered a cappuccino and a toasted ham and cheese sandwich. However, at the time between him leaving that shopping center and arriving at the bus terminal, he disposed of one of his bags somewhere. He was missing a bag, and no cameras picked it up. While he's in this little cafe at the bus station eating his food, he pulled out a couple pieces of paper from his pocket and he began to read them and scribble or write on them. Once he got done eating and drinking, he got it from the table, he tore the paper in half, and then he put it in the garbage bin right there. At this point, he boarded a bus heading to Ross's Point Beach. So, to catch you up to speed and to make sure you're not...
I hope that they found that piece of paper that he ripped up. Because it's got something to do with something. If he's sitting there and he's reading through all these pieces of paper and he rips one all to hell or rips them all to hell and he throws them away... It's got something to do with something. There's a reason why, like, those papers have to mean something. They had something on there. And he's doing something shady. Or he's intertwined with some shady people, or he don't belong here, or he's in witness protection and somebody found his ass because he was just being too, like, out there. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I hope that they found those pieces of paper.
Missing anything in this case. This man arrived at a hotel, gave a fake name, a fake identity, and said he was from a fake place. He then checked into the hotel room and would leave periodically every single day, multiple times a day, with a bag full of stuff, and he would return with nothing in the bag. On his final day of staying there, he did it again, and then he left the hotel with a bag that he didn't come to the hotel with, only to walk to the train station and kind of aimlessly walk around the town, as you can see from the footage, arrive at the train station, drink a coffee, get a snack, and pull out a piece of paper only to write on it and then throw it away. All of these moves that this man was making were either nonsensical or so well thought out that they appear to be nonsensical.
What if he's from a multiverse and that's why he has a name and is from a place that can't be found? You are undeafened in Discord? No, I'm not, dude. Dude, if he was from a multiverse, that, I mean, like I said, dude, that would make sense. If he was from like a different universe, or if he was like a time traveler, or like any of that type of shit, that would make a lot of sense. That's why they can't find him in anything. Like, and it's like he never existed, dude. But somebody knew he was here. Somebody knew he was here. It didn't want him here. I'm just trying to get to the point to figure out how it was that he died. Like, if it's ruled off as a homicide, okay, yeah, he was doing some shady shit, he was in some kind of witness protection, or somebody knew he was here. If he just died abruptly, and there's like no kind of like markings, no nothing on him that like showcases any of that shit, the man was a time traveler, or he was from a multiverse and just so happened to die in our universe. And if he was a time traveler, hypothetically, if he was a time traveler, he's dropping off shit to somebody. He's giving something to somebody that's going to help aid them in the future. I don't know. Mind running 1,000,000 miles a minute, oh son.
Throughout the investigation of this man's disappearance and trying to solve who he was, the police around the area said that he knew what he was doing, because the way he walked, the way he explored the city, the way he kind of moved around, hinted to the fact that he knew how to avoid cameras and he knew how to not get caught on them. And he did just this whenever he wanted to, and at this point in the story, he's now headed to Ross's Point Beach. The next time he was seen was on the beach by a few witnesses that evening. Several people saw him standing there because he looked out of place. He was dressed in black dress attire and was bare feet on a beach, which is usually not what you go to the beach with. He had a newspaper under his arms and his bags on him. A couple friends saw him standing in ankle-deep water, kind of just staring into the sunset right in front of him, as if he was trying to soak up the final moments of the sun. 30 minutes later, another couple of people saw him standing a little bit further out in the water, once again, standing in the direct path of a low-setting sun. A direct ray covered his entire body, and he was simply standing and staring out into the ocean at this sun. This is the last confirmed time that the man was seen alive. The next morning, on June 16th, a father and his son were walking on the beach because the sun
That's fucking creepy. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that now. That is creepy.
Was preparing for a triathlon, and they stumbled upon the body of Peter Bergman. He was laying there lifeless on the rocks of the beach, and it was immediately assumed that he had drowned. However, this is just the beginning of the case, and the strange oddities have only peeked through slightly. The investigation and then his post-mortem autopsy would throw the investigators for a loop and would confuse the entire world. The man's body was taken in and examined. He was wearing striped swimming shorts, underwear, and had a dark blue shirt tucked into them. The man had no wallet, no money, no ID, or anything that would indicate who he was or where he came from. The bags and the newspaper that he was holding earlier from eyewitnesses were not there. Upon further investigation of the clothes that the man was wearing, it was discovered that all of the tags on the clothes were cut off, meaning that they were untraceable and you couldn't even see where he got the clothes from. Initial reports, like I said, assumed that the man had drowned. If you see a body washed up on the beach, that's your first thought. But after the Sligo medical examiner got a hold of the body, he concluded that there was no evidence to support a typical saltwater drowning. So there was no evidence of drowning, and as well, there was no evidence of foul play, homicide, or even suicide. The man was just not alive anymore. Even further investigation led to more startling discoveries. The man's teeth were in good shape, showing signs of regular dental work throughout his entire life. He even had a full gold tooth on the back right side of his mouth. But what was more interesting is what's deeper inside of his body. Analysis showed that the man was in terrible health. He had signs of advanced prostate cancer, as well as signs of heart disease. These cancers and sicknesses were so bad that his bones were developing tumors. Essentially, he was a dying man, waiting for it to happen. The examiner said that the man would have been in excruciating pain from the bone tumors and the cancers, and would have been on medication for it. But
y'all think he's just a guy that just knew he was gonna die? Like, I don't know how he would pick out the exact time that he was going to die and know for a fact that that was the time that he was going to die. But a man died. You know what I mean? And, like, did it in a way that he wanted to do it. He went and watched he'd seen the ocean, went and watched the sunset, and then died. I just don't understand why he would go to, like, a totally different country, lie about who he is, all this other crazy shit, and then die in a different country. Like, that, none of it makes any kind of sense whatsoever. But as far as him lying about who he was, it kind of makes me wonder if he did that deliberately because he didn't want his family to know that he died. Like, maybe he didn't want his wife to know he died, or maybe he didn't want his kids to know that he died, or his grandkids to know that he died. And he went out, deliberately lied about who he was, never told any of his family about any of the medical problems, and then just died. You know, maybe the doctor was like, oh, you're going to die at this time. And then he was like, and then picked the day and then went and did what he had to do. I don't know, dude. It's very weird, very strange, very confounding.
When a toxicology report came out, there was no medicine in his system at all, meaning that the man was just suffering. Despite thorough investigation, no cause of death could be determined. But I want to paint you a picture of what this man might have been going through. He was in undescribable amounts of pain. He had prostate cancer, heart disease, and was growing bone tumors. He left his life from wherever he was, and he came here to end it all on his own terms. So there he sat, watching one final sunset on the beach in a beautiful country as the waves lapped up on the shore around him. And as he stood there, he knew that he would finally be at peace after years of suffering. And he chose dying alone, watching the sunset over gasping for air in a hospital bed. To this day, the man remains.
I'm going to throw y'all for a loop here. This is just a theory. The man had a golden tooth. Maybe he was well off. What if he was one of those guys that you hear stories about that had sold his soul to the devil because like when you hear those stories that, you know, the devil always tells them like they always know when he's about to get them, because like he gets closer and closer and closer. It's like one of them like folklore type stories. Or what if he knew he was coming, dude? And, you know, they told him the day and the time and the hour that he was coming. And it's like, you know, right after the sunset or whatever, you coming with me. And then so he went somewhere, watched a final sunset, and then got. As horrifically horrifying as that sounds, what if that's how it went down? I mean, I'm just throwing shit at the wall by this point. I don't know who this gentleman is, or Peter Bergman, whatever his name is. I don't know who this gentleman is or what he is. I'm not a crime solver. You know what I mean? But I've also heard that when people are dying, they know when their time is coming. And if we're going back a little bit more realistic, could have been. You know what I mean? You never know.
Is unidentified. No family, no friends, no job, no fingerprints, no DNA samples. Nothing has popped up to indicate who this man was. There is no information and no findings on where he dumped his property in those little bags. There's no information about anything. It's as if he did not exist. But I truly believe that this was a dying man, a ghost among the living. And when you watch this CCTV footage, you kind of get that feeling that he knows he's just walking around his last few moments. It's as if his final wishes were to unburden himself from anything that tied him to this world. He wanted to fade away, he wanted to disappear, he wanted to go into the great beyond with no strings attached. He wanted to be forgotten, he wanted to fade away forever. And ironically, in doing that, he cemented himself to never be forgotten because of the way he did it. Life is full of those little eccentricities like that. When I began researching for this case, I came into it with the idea that this guy was some sort of like foreign spy, or was some sort of like mobster, and he was trying to lay low and somebody put a hit out on him and they put—
Did I not say the same? Well, I didn't say mobster, but I said the man was in witness protection and somebody got his ass. That is what I said in the beginning. Me and this gentleman had the same assumption when we went into it. And I'm certain that the law probably also had the same assumption whenever they initially went into it, and then realized, wait a minute, that dude looks like a white Gustavo Fring from Breaking Bad. Yeah, he does. He definitely does. I will say this, though, about him. The man is getting around pretty damn good for somebody who apparently has, like, bone tumors that are, like, growing and in excruciating pain. He stepped out of that door and lit that cigarette like nothing was wrong with him. He's walking in and out like nothing was wrong with him, waltzing around town, nothing wrong with him, eating like nothing's wrong with him. Maybe he just learned to live with it, or he didn't give a shit, but he had no medicine in his system, and he was dying. And that's just very strange, man. Now I'm going to be all obsessed with Peter Bergman, trying to figure out who he is and where he came from.
Put his body there. Or he was somehow murdered. But after doing the research and watching all these documentaries about him, I believe he knew he was dying. I believe he knew he was in great pain. And he didn't want to cause anybody even a fraction of that. And who can blame him? When I die, I'd like my last moment to be watching the sunset over the ocean as I lay on the beach. There are several—
Put your tinfoil hats on, boys. Here comes the theories.
Other theories as to who this man might be that also deserve to be talked about, and that's what this section's for. The theory I've told you this entire time, that he was a terminally ill man who knew he was going to die, and he came here to do so, that's what I personally believe. Not that you care or ask, I'm a YouTuber, what do I know? One theory is that Peter Bergman is actually the missing Bitcoin founder, Satoshi Nakamoto. In 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto released the Bitcoin white paper, which of course changed the world. He's marked with being the first creator of the coin, and he actually owns 5% of all total Bitcoin, which totals to several billions of dollars worth. But sometime after 2009, Nakamoto vanished. He disappeared from the public eye completely, and friends and family and the public have no idea where he went, if he's still alive, what he's doing, or anything. When you compare what Nakamoto looks like to what Peter Bergman looks like, they kind of share some similarities. They're both older men, they both have tanner complexions, and they both kind of walk around.
Okay, that second one there that he showed where they're like kind of side by side or both wearing suits. Well, the old guy, Peter Bergman's not wearing a suit. They should have... Well, no, they said he sounded German, though. He said he was from, like, where was that? Austria or something? But they said he sounded like a German. Like, he sounded like he was a German. I feel like there's a large difference between an Asian accent and a German accent. That's it. That's the only thing about this theory that's kind of I don't know. Unless he spent a lot of time in Germany and kind of picked up on that.
On the same, but obviously Nakamoto is Asian, right? And Peter Bergman was from Austria, or so he said, and he had some kind of German accent. So unless Nakamoto had a really killer German impression, I don't think these are the same people. Although the timelines do match up, and it would be very interesting that the founder of the currency that changed the world died alone with nothing to his name on a beach. I don't know. Some theorize that the man was some kind of German spy who either was excommunicated or fled the country. People who believe this theory cite the fact that he cut the tags off of his clothes and was knowledgeable enough to dump his items in places that would never be found. People say that that is spy training, or they're taught that, and that his behaviors match those who participate in espionage, which, might be true. He did do some strange things to the viewers like us, but maybe he was trained as a spy, and that's why he did those things. And I don't know. Maybe the way he died was by consuming some untraceable poison from a tooth or something. It's unknown. Whatever the case is, whoever Peter Bergman is, I believe he truly wanted to fade away and leave this world with no ties to it. Whatever happened in his life, whatever led up to this sickness, whatever caused this pain, it didn't matter to him anymore. He wanted to be faceless.
Being a special agent, being trained to be that way, I mean, that does make sense. He got rid of all of his personal belongings, anything that could identify him. It's very strange. He cut the tags off all of his clothes so they could not be traced in any kind of way. He come in there with a false name. That makes sense. Everything that he did was of kind of like spy mannerisms. And if he did kill himself with some sort of untraceable poison, then they would be baffled as to why he just up and died. They wouldn't be able to figure it out why he just up and died, and it would make sense as to why he was able to pick the exact moment that he died. He watched his last sunset, took the poison, boom, gone. And a spy, obviously, if they're hired to kill people, they're gonna have poisons that are not traceable, And I know that sounds like a far-fetched kind of theory, but that theory alone probably makes more sense than, for one, anything else that he stated, and anything else I've stated. I'm over to talk about the man being a time traveler. He's talking about the man being a Japanese Bitcoin guy. I don't know, dude.
He wanted to be nameless, and he went out doing just that. Nobody wants to die alone under chemotherapy in the hospital. He took a stand against death, and he made it wait until he accepted it. And if that was his intention, then he truly succeeded. Death comes for us all, but those who don't fear it never truly die.
The unsolved case of the man who didn't exist. That's pretty wild, dude. I'm not wild.